Everyone, thank you for being here with us tonight. I'm Eric Greenway. I'm the just recently named County Administrator for Beaufort County. I appreciate you all being here this evening to give us an opportunity to provide information and answer questions that you all may have about the Daufuskie Island Ferry operation, particularly as it relates to the recommendation by staff to continue with the embarkation at Buckingham Landing at the county-owned property there. Given some information that I received earlier today, I'm going to be limited in what I can say about the situation because I was informed this morning by an attorney that was hired by residents of Buckingham Landing that they were planning to file suit against the county. So my legal counsel has told me that I should be very limited in the information that I convey to you all tonight because very likely anything I say tonight I'm going to be asked about again in some sort of deposition. So we're going to walk through this with you all to the best of our ability. I would ask that you all try to be as respectful as possible as we go through this, and the reason I say that is that we as a staff have gotten some very pointed emails through this situation here. It's a very difficult issue that we're trying to work through to accommodate the people that visit and live on Daufuskie Island and also try to accommodate the folks at Buckingham Landing that live there. So having said that, I'm going to introduce a few people that you may hear from this evening. To my left here in the light blue shirt is Dave Wilhelm. Many of you have probably talked to Dave or received emails from Dave. He has done most of the work on the background of looking at additional sites for the ferry operations and where we could establish a more permanent ferry operations for the county. To his right is Jared Fralix. He's the Assistant County Administrator for Engineering. He works with Dave, provides oversight to Dave. He's also been very involved in the short time that he's been here with regards to trying to find an appropriate solution for the ferry operations. We have some council members here this evening. I will start off with the council member who represents Buckingham Landing, Mr. Hervishon. There. To his left is Councilmember Stu Rodman, who represents portions of Hilton Head Island. Up here on the second row is Councilmember Larry McKellen, who represents also portions of Hilton Head Island. To my right here is Mr. Mark Lawson, who represents Daufuskie Island and Bluffton. And then to his left is Councilmember York Glover, who represents St. Helena Island. Right. So anyway, again, thank you all for being here. Again, the purpose of the meeting tonight is for us to convey information to you and try to answer questions that you all may have about the recommendation that was made to the county council, who ultimately is charged with making this final decision. The Daufuskie Island ferry situation at Buckingham Landing goes back many, many years to sometime after Hurricane Matthew, whenever councils at that particular time made a decision to lease the Sea Trawler Restaurant to do the ferry operations from that particular location. After that, the county decided that they would go ahead and purchase the property. So it is now a county-owned property. As a result of that, and the ferry, as you know, many of you have direct dealings with and experience with, and has impacted you all in some cases in negative ways, has operated there since Hurricane Matthew. We were hopeful from a county standpoint when we released an RFP out that we would get a lot more creative solutions to dealing with the ferry situation and bids that were submitted. We've sent out that RFP with a scope of work and a scope of services included in it. We had 4 proposals that were submitted for that in response to that RFP that was put out. I can't get any closer to this microphone unless I stand over here, so, you know. And the committee, the way that works is the proposals come in, they get sent out to a review committee, which is made up of professional staff members that serve as that serve the county in various capacities. I think Jared and Dave were on the committee, in addition to the deputy county administrator and the assistant county administrator for public safety, Mr. Phil Foote. They reviewed the 4 proposals. They conducted interviews with some of the proposals that they decided that they wanted to hear from, and then they crafted a recommendation that went to the Public Facilities Committee that Councilmember Rodman chairs, and that recommendation was to go with Hague Point Ferry and to continue to operate from Buckingham Landing. That may not be the permanent solution to the issue. We're still trying to evaluate options on that, but for the foreseeable future, if the council continues with that, operations will continue with Hague Point and with Buckingham Landing for the next few years at least, because if we tried to come up with a more permanent solution that we're continuing to research, it's going to be a few years before we could build anything and relocate that operation anyway. So that's pretty much where we stand at this point. The recommendation out of Public Facilities was 7-2 in favor of the staff recommendation to go with Hague Point to continue the operations from Buckingham Landing. And after that, I reached out to Ms. Ware and said, hey, I think it would be a good idea, and to Tom Taylor, the attorney that's been retained by the community, and said, hey, I think it might be a good idea for us to meet with the community so that we can hear some concerns that you all may have, to see if, even though this may not be the permanent recommendation, the permanent solution, if there's things that we can do to mitigate the impact that you all are experiencing for the short term. So that's pretty much what got us here tonight. Again, I'm happy to take any of your questions about those. Yes, sir.
You know, it's a private community, and the traffic is really, really heavy. And you're talking about opening up another 80 spots and closing off the ramp. And we have children there. We have cats and dogs and things. How do they feel that that's a good idea? Because it's a private community.
Yeah.
And, you know, the ramp there is a landmark. It should be considered a landmark that's how people used to get built. They had to start off with. And then all of a sudden you got all this traffic coming in, and they're going 100 miles an hour because they're running late to get to the ferry. And they're running 100 miles to try to get out of there to go somewhere. How is that good for our neighborhood? It's a neighborhood. It's not like a commercial place. It's actually a neighborhood.
Well, it's a neighborhood with a commercial property that sits on the edge of it. So, to your point.
Which property are you speaking of?
Do what?
Which commercial property are you speaking of?
Yeah, I'm going to answer his question, then I'll answer whatever questions.
But I understand that the Beaufort County owns the property down at the ramp, and they bought it from Roller. But that's just not right to have people flying down the road to get there. And if it was your neighborhood, you would not like it whatsoever.
And that's why we're trying to take steps.
If y'all pursue it.
Are you going to let me answer the question, or you want to just keep talking? Okay. All right. So, yeah, I get everything that you're saying. I understand that there's been questions about people that come to the ferry operation walking around through people's property and neighborhoods and things like that. So that's why we also, as a part of the overall county master facilities plan, worked with the consultant that was doing that for all the county properties to try to say, hey, if there's gonna be any county use of this property that we purchased, how do we make that work so that we provide appropriate buffering to set aside this property from the residential area to minimize the impact? And how do we deal with the traffic issues to slow people down coming in and out of there?
It's ugly.
Do what?
So what have you done in 3 years? What have you done to minimize the traffic?
It's ugly.
Well, we haven't done, nothing's been done yet, right?
Yes.
So,
That's
but,
why we're here.
right, I understand that, but we had a,
30 years to figure out what we want to do about it.
but we have a proposal that if council approves the proposal, we think will mitigate the traffic and provide buffering and provide the separation that's necessary to allow that property to be used. Even if it's not used for a ferry, there's probably gonna be some county use of that property, the Sea Trawler Restaurant, in the future, in the long term. Don't know what that will be. And whatever we do with that property, there's gonna have to be, in my mind, as a community planner, some alternative design that will deal with traffic issues, provide appropriate buffering, additional landscaping. And the parking lot is ugly now, and it needs to be reworked. And that's why we work with the master plan facilities planner, the consultant, to work on that. Yes, ma'am?
Do the council members that voted on this, are they aware that the picture you used from Google Maps shows that there's no property right next to this expansion that you're looking at, and yet that is our personal property? That lot is
Yeah,
just vacant.
Yeah.
There's a house there and a lot there, and there's people that are directly affected by your change.
Yeah,
And our property value and the actual access to our property.
Yeah.
Do the members know that?
yeah, they know it. I mean, because I've responded to Mr. Herbershaw that, you know, who asked me the same question.
That was not me. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
All council members were not on that email response. Right.
Yeah, but
All
the
council members here know that there's a house directly there that will be blocked off.
They use
By
the
closing
Google
that
Earth image of a vacant lot. That's my house there.
Yeah, ma'am, let me clarify. The Wares went to get a variance for a boat dock a few weeks ago, about 3 or 4 weeks prior to that issue. And when I pulled up the GIS map, that the county, even the attorney that was hired to represent the Wares, couldn't even point out the Wares house because the aerial photos had not been updated on county GIS at that particular point in time, because we don't fly the county every year. So that's why they used that particular map, because that was the latest data available on GIS at that particular
Somebody couldn't
point.
have gone out and just surveyed it and drove down there and looked at the property?
No, we
They showed a
couldn't.
dimension on
We
the
couldn't
picture
do
there
that for the
about
master
Wares.
facilities plan, because all of these things are concept drawings.
Well, then just update
Surveys
that,
happen,
start over.
surveys happen after council approves a design, and then you go out and do construction drawings and do survey work and things like that. And I did say during the presentation, I'm going to answer his question. I did say during the presentation that there were some negative aspects about that conceptual drawing. Folks don't seem to recall me saying that, where I did point out that we were going to impact access to a few residential properties with the proposed plan. And I'm not saying that's the plan we go with. I'm just saying that's a concept drawing to give council an idea of what staff's perspective was and the consultant's perspective was to retrofit Buckingham Landing so that we could mitigate some of the traffic and some of the landscaping and some of the parking impacts on the
So
property.
what other conceptual designs have you looked at and where are they located?
We've looked at a few conceptual designs through our consultant that we've hired. We can ask them to provide those to us, but the design that we presented to the council is the one that I can pull up here for you at any moment. Yes, sir, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yes, sir. I'm running room and I share the property line.
Yes, sir.
So on your conceptual drawing, kind of to Alyssa's point, if you are familiar with the property, there's a lift station there and it's marked as utility on the drawing. There's a chain link fence that runs from the road back to the creek.
Right.
That's the property line that I share. if you look at that drawing, there's 10 or 15 cars parked north of there. So are you going to plan on buying property to make this work?
No.
So, let me finish. So the county, the facilities group, they were given information that's not accurate.
Well-
How can they vote on something that's not accurate?
It wasn't inaccurate information.
I'm just saying.
Incomplete is
So-
nothing else.
Well, and that's exactly right. It was incomplete. You're right, because it was a conceptual drawing based on an aerial photo of an overlay on top of an aerial photo from a GIS drawing. And the reason it was skewed a little bit is because if you look at a lot of GIS drawings, because land isn't flat and GIS is drawn on a flat plane, sometimes the development on a piece of property looks closer to a property line or looks off a little bit because we did not spend the money to do an actual plan that had dimensions on it where we could take all of that into account. We just did conceptual drawings that overlaid the drawing on top of aerial photography off of our GIS layer. And that's why it looks skewed. But no, we don't plan, we will make sure that if they go with that plan, all the setbacks will be maintained, all the buffers will be maintained, all of the things will get done appropriately once we have the dimensional drawings.
So how can you vote on moving that forward?
Again, they're not voting on the drawing. What they're voting on is the recommendation to continue with the lease of Hay Point and allow them to operate the ferry. That's what council's voting on.
But you
The
said
drawing was
it
just
doesn't
a,
make sense without that expansion.
do what now?
So, but them remaining there doesn't even make sense without that expansion. So.
Yeah, but the reason, but I was answering his question about the vote. They're not, the council is not voting on the drawing. The council was voting on who to authorize to continue the ferry service and the location at Buckingham Landing.
But you use that conceptual plan to make your staying there look like it makes more sense. So they, in essence, did use that as information to help weigh their vote. And it was incredibly inaccurate.
Yeah, and
This is an inaccurate information that you're talking about,
I
and you didn't
understand.
take the time to make an accurate drawing for them.
Are those
well,
minutes?
I couldn't get that authorization, ma'am,
To draw a house on there?
to draw a house.
House on there, you didn't get that?
I mean, it sounded like you're just more concerned with getting a vote out rather than actually getting all the facts, getting the details, pulling the package together, and then making an educated decision.
No, we made an educated decision. Again, it's a conceptual drawing that doesn't illustrate anything that cannot be used for any type of construction or anything like that. It's just a concept to show an illustration of what could happen at land. Again, not saying it's even something that's feasible or the council wants to do. We unveiled that as a potential option for them to consider. I don't know how much council gave weight to that drawing for the operation. I think based on my observation of the meeting, they were more supportive of the recommendation based on the proposal that was put forth by the Hay Point Landing and the recommendation by the committee to go with Hay Point for the ferry operation. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Greenway. Okay, so I get it, right? And municipal resources across the country are strapped. So the reality is there's going to be a lot of survey data that's not relevant. There's got to be a lot of real estate online data that hasn't been updated in 10 years. That's the cost of doing business when you're a county. And that makes perfect sense. Resources have to be divided where they need to be divided to. We understand that you guys need access to Daufuskie Island. There is no dispute about that. We want to support our Daufuskie Island neighbors to give them an opportunity to get over to their homes. There are approximately 700 people that live there. They need to have access to where they reside. They pay tax dollars to the county. It makes perfect sense to us. My concern, okay, is twofold, all right? It sounds like the information that was put to council to vote upon this proposal being admittedly inaccurate through no fault of your own, which makes perfect sense. Maybe the vote should be recast based upon actual accurate information, and then, hold on, sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's good.
2 points to make. So I'm suggesting that the proposal, this particular vote, be struck and recast based upon accurate information that we now know is available, despite the fact that we didn't have it at the onset when it was the conceptual drawing. And also, two background issues, all right? It's my understanding that the county, while it is in direct possession of the commercial parcel, which we do not dispute and cannot, there are real estate records that support that, they are not in control, nor do they own the public landing, which makes that a very difficult feat for them to circumvent the state's ownership of the sole historical public landing that gave rise to, I believe, there was like a hurricane in the 70s where the USPS couldn't get to Hilton Head, and the only way that mail could be delivered to the residents of Hilton Head Island.
I confirm that because I was the man who brought it over.
Right, was through a barge at our public landing, and they would barge the USPS workers to Hilton Head to ensure that through rain, snow, sleet, or shine, the mail was delivered. So I'm proposing that might obfuscate the potential planning based upon the fact that while, again, the county does own that parcel, they do not own the public landing. And I'm not sure what relations are, and I have not verified that because the records are inaccurate online.
We do own the landing.
Okay, so
Correct.
that was my question.
Yeah.
And then my other question is simply this. I understand that there has been an emergency need for this particular operation to exist on Buckingham County because of Matthew. And then post-Matthew, we obviously had a 100-year-old pandemic, okay? Like, life gets complicated, and I get that you guys have many moving parts as a county, and we respect that. But that all being said, Matthew was 2016. It's 2021. We also have a bridge proposal that is set to be slated and proposed out next month. So my concern is that without having all accurate information at our disposal, which is really what we need to make sure that even temporary fiscal expenditures are appropriate under the circumstances, right? Like we have this $2.1 million project. I know we've got credits going back and forth, whatever, but it's not going to be without cost to the county, right? Win, lose, or draw, you're going to have to shell out something to keep it there. And my question to you is, why not cast that vote after the fact with accurate information, after the bridge proposal has been issued in July, like in August? I mean, that's a
Well, here's
reasonable.
right here. So let me explain to you what happened with the first vote.
Sure.
Okay, that's a committee vote.
Right.
That's a recommendation to full council.
Right.
Council has to take an additional vote to make it official.
But
So
can
that's
we
the reason
strike-
why.
Can we
That's
strike 2 weeks ago because we had inaccurate
the only way
information?
way to do that would be for at the next public facilities agenda for someone that voted in favor of the recommendation from staff is to make a motion to reconsider and to re-vote on the issue, and I don't think that's going to happen, honestly.
Well, let's not foreclose on possibilities until they happen, but
Yeah,
I'm
just giving you my
assessment.
assessment that I don't, that very rarely, if ever, happens.
Because I do understand that the other reason why you guys want to keep it temporarily, and temporary in county terms means 12 months to 5 years. I mean, let's get serious. Emergency Matthew, here we are in June of 2021, 5 years later talking about this. So that was an emergency, and now this is temporary. I'm just going to translate that to another 5 years, just in like municipal movement terms. But I don't understand why, if the bridge, which is so integral in Daufuskie Ferry future operations, and having had that opportunity literally 45 days from today, I don't understand why you guys didn't wait on this. Like, it's not obviously, I mean, county moves slowly, like molasses.
Wait on what?
Wait to vote on this proposal, which is based upon inaccurate information and conception.
It's not based on inaccurate information.
But it is.
No, it's not.
It is.
What the vote is based on, as I explained to you earlier,
Right.
is based on accurate information that was submitted by the people that submitted proposals to do the ferry operations. That's the only vote that is taking place. There is no vote to do anything to sea trawler happening right now. That is not a part of that. So the
Right.
concept drawing that you all seem to be focusing on, there is nothing going on with that at this particular
So I
point.
wasn't even-
That will have to go through a whole new process because, and I'll get to that, why we did what we did with that in just a moment. So that concept plan has nothing to do with the
Simply
vote.
concept.
It's simply a concept because what would have happened, I think, what would have happened and what I was trying to protect against was council saying, well, what do you mean you can potentially retrofit the sea trawler restaurant to do additional parking and to put in buffers along the residential area and things like that? I needed to have something to illustrate that particular item to them should that question be brought up during that meeting.
So
But the
you
actual
use a conceptual plan
recommendation,
to
hold
change
on
their
one
vote.
second, okay, I'll give you a chance to ask me the question. So the actual vote is only about who's going to operate the ferry service and where that is going to occur. So the committee that made the recommendation, the Public Facilities Committee, recommended that it go to Hay Point, who has the current ferry contract, and it continue to operate from Buckingham Landing. That's the only vote that's taken place. There's been no vote about retrofitting Buckingham Landing, about doing anything with the roads, about doing anything with the parking, about any of that. That will be a whole separate process that if the council wants to do that, we will have to go out and secure land planners and engineers and site people to do drawings that will be accurate. This is a conceptual drawing based on the information that was available to consultants that work in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that they could get access to.
So just really fast, and
Yeah.
then I'll let, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. You're asking some great questions.
Okay, so just to kind of dial back to the public landing. The county deed and title owns the public landing?
Okay, so the county owns the public landing.
Do you know when they acquired that?
I do not.
Because I mean,
Right.
you would say be a trick.
And when you say deed and title,
I mean, do
yeah,
you actually?
we haven't done a title search. We haven't done any of that on the actual landing. We maintain the island. If you look it up on GIS, it says Beaufort County. Just like if you looked up your property, it would
I'll
say
check that. I just
you
want
own
to see
it.
if it
Right,
had
yeah.
references.
Right,
Because
yeah.
again, you said you have
Yeah, I mean, there's
45
probably a
that
deed,
night there, that-
there's probably a deed reference
Okay.
in that GIS, Manatron or whatever that we use, so.
Okay, and then just like, kind of, again, going back to like, you guys are in the business of zoning, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
to be completely fair, if I showed up to federal court and said, this is my concept, and I'm proposing it, and I'm entitled to my proposal vote, and it was based upon inaccurate information, I would be laughed out of court.
Not-
So I just, when it comes to this entire process,
Right.
if you can help me, Mr. Greenway, just kind of understand what the next steps are, and what sort of timeframe
let me-
we're looking at after your proposal.
Yeah, so timeframes that we're looking at for the Hay Point Ferry to operate from Buckingham Landing, is that what you're asking me?
Yes, just like,
So
what are the next steps?
This is Eric Greenway speaking. I'm not speaking for the county council.
Of course.
This is Eric Greenway speaking because we discussed this on the way over today as a staff as to what happens if council decides to continue to operate at Buckingham Landing and go with Hay Point and then look for a more permanent solution, what the time frame on that would be. And if we were to able purchase property today or tomorrow and start the process, you're looking at about a 3-year period from the beginning to being able to leave Buckingham Landing. to have a new
didn't take 3
ferry.
years to buy that.
So, do what now?
It didn't take 3 years to buy the sea trawler.
Yeah, but it would take that long to get permits and build new stuff and things like that.
You don't have permits now, you don't have zoning
You didn't have
now,
permits
so.
there, did you?
We have an existing facility that already has dock permits
There's
and things like that.
existing facilities all over the county that we can use.
And just to clarify, because I'm not sure that I was clear enough in my question. So you said that the life, this is merely a proposal that's been voted on, which makes perfect sense.
Been recommended to council.
So, but what I'm asking, not time frame wise, as far as like, you know, the guns blazing, we're doing Daufuskie off of Buckingham.
Right.
I'm saying internally, from a county council or administration perspective, the life of this proposal, what would it take to make this proposal come to fruition? What am I looking at process?
One more vote at the next council meeting, which is June 14th.
Okay, okay. So all we have to do is lobby for that extra vote not to occur, and then we'll be back to square one.
Yeah,
and we
and
can come
council,
up with some better-
you know, staff, our job, again,
Just
is to
propose.
recommend to council what we feel is the best situation under circumstances that we were given to work on. We made our recommendation. You know, again, council, they get the right to be political and to take account of politics and concerns of the community and decide, hey, we're not going to vote on this or we're going to vote in a different way. That's their prerogative to do that. We get paid to make a recommendation based on what we reviewed, what we heard, what we saw, what we study, what we know about the situation. And, you know, once we make that recommendation, council's at liberty to do whatever they feel is appropriate to do it.
Just one more thing, I swear to God, I'll stop talking. So we had a 7-2 vote,
Uh-huh.
okay? You're saying that in order to make this a viable solution, you need an 8-1?
No, I'm saying that we, to make it a viable solution, in this particular case, you need 6-5 in favor of the motion either way.
Okay.
So we have 11 council members. If one of them's not out, then you need a majority of whoever's present to vote either way. So, okay.
Cool.
So anyway,
Thank you.
go
All
ahead.
right, I got a couple questions that might answer some of your questions. So, anyway. So I think everybody in here is wanting to know, as late as last November, we were told and that Hague Point, that CC Hague Landing was a go for a temporary facility. What happened?
That I don't know. I wasn't involved in those
Okay,
decisions.
what happened?
So
What happened to the Hague plan?
Good afternoon. It's been put on hold.
Why?
We've took a look at it as we're going through the process. Became more complicated. Costs were going up, going through the planning process. And at that time, we're going through the RFP process. We made a decision to wait until the proposals came in. So we haven't stopped, we have stopped moving forward with it, but we haven't shelved the project yet.
How far did you get?
Preliminary plans?
The
that was
last
submitted?
correspondence I received from you was in August, and it said that everything was a go. We're in the planning stages with the surveying.
Yep.
We're getting stormwater permitting, and according to your timeline spreadsheet that you sent to us, everything was on schedule.
yeah,
And then we heard nothing further for months.
yeah, let me address that. The reason it did not go any further is because the plan that was being proposed and
The temporary plan or the permanent?
the temporary plan.
Okay.
The temporary plan that was being proposed did not meet county community development code requirements and also did not meet the needs of the Daufuskie Island residents and the folks visiting there. That's when, I understand that, but our,
What specific needs weren't met?
you what now?
What specific needs weren't met?
One, appropriate restroom facilities. We were going to, the proposal proposed that we would put in porta-johns there for the folks to use as part of the embarkation point. The facility was an open-air facility. It was not going to be workable from an environmental standpoint for people to stand underneath that in a rain event or something like that with the way wind blows across that. There'd be no way to keep people dry. in a rainstorm. It was just going to be an uncomfortable situation for folks to be there. It was going to be very costly, as Dave said. There was not going to be adequate parking. Once the bridge construction started, there was going to be all kind of logistic issues about getting people in and out of there. So the decision was made to go out for the RFP, and council approved that, authorized us to do that, in hopes that we would get some creative solutions to dealing with the issue on a response to that RFP. That did not materialize. So we are on a month-to-month basis now with the present contract for Daufuskie Island Ferry. So we as a staff had to make a recommendation to council as a result of that RFP based on the submittals that we got on that. And that's where we are right now.
The complaints that the Daufuskie Island residents had regarding the facilities, how is that any different from their facilities currently over at the Miller's Landing on Daufuskie?
Yeah, is Leanne, do you want to talk about the concerns with that temporary plan?
Typically, what we do when we come there, we're not necessarily waiting for an hour. Like if I'm coming from shopping, I may get there an hour early, I may not. But coming from my house, I'm going to come so that I'm getting right on the ferry. And most visitors that come to, they're leaving their rental property. You're right, there are no bathroom facilities on Daufuskie Island. I mean, the ones that were built.
The money about spending $2 million changing Buckingham, how much would it cost to put some bathrooms on?
It's probably the property. All the property.
A mobile bathroom don't cost $1 million.
If you want to ask a question. All the property on Daufuskie Island is private property.
I'm talking about putting bathrooms on Hay.
County taking all this into consideration for their private property. But so under consideration our neighborhood.
Because we don't have a bathroom there.
I mean, I realize their tax dollars are bigger or whatever and all that, and that always makes a big difference. But that doesn't mean that they should infringe on our properties just because they need something else.
And again, I'm not, we're not as a staff, and I don't think council is, trying to say that one group has more importance on the other. I know that's what. I know that. So let me finish, okay? I know that may be what you all perceive to be happening. Yes. But that's not what's happening. That's why we had the facilities master plan consultant to try to develop a plan to where we could mitigate the impacts there, to make the parking situation better, to make the traffic situation better, to provide more separation and more vegetation between the neighborhood and the Buckingham landing facility. If it's going to be used, if it was going to be used for anything, the plan that was drawn up is not related, the conceptual plan that was drawn up isn't related to ferry service operating from Buckingham Landing. It is a recommendation of how to deal with that facility long-term as a county-owned property for any use the county council may want to make of that property as a county-owned facility. Because anything that we do there, in my mind, from a design standpoint, with a background as a community planner, we're going to have to redesign that parking lot. We're going to have to redesign the flow of traffic in and out of that facility. We're going to have to clean the area up. So the proposal that we have called for the removal of the smaller building, keep the bigger building, put in a one-way drive that would have angle parking coming in and circling around and going back out. And the negative to that property, as I said in my presentation to council, the negative of that plan was that it would limit access out that final road into that area there across from the sea trawler now. in front of the Ware's property at this point. And it would also take away an access that they have on that road for the vacant lot that's on the property.
And slows all that traffic down coming in and out of there.
So
Okay, so let's,
you got another question?
well, I was just saying McDonald's been waiting for a long time.
I'm gonna get to you, let me answer.
Okay, so the other street, the Vine Street, okay, that's gonna be totally open and you're gonna have nothing to do with that? Or you're, but what I see is you're closing off both of those streets, not just the
I
one.
think the proposal only closed one.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is probably a little off track. Here's my question. It's a county, the ferry service is running out of a county-owned piece of property, right? The county has a contract to provide a ferry service to the residents of Daufuskie, right? I've lived here 42 years, so it seems to me that it used to be the ferry, we pick up people on Daufuskie and bring them to Hilton Head. They can do whatever they want, and they take them back to school kids, people have to get a doctor, whatever. Okay, so is that what we're talking about here? Because it seems to me that there's more than one entity running out of that dock. It seems to me that, I wouldn't call it the Daufuskie Island Ferry Service, is a tourist business. It's running out of the county property. Now, there was a point maybe 2 years ago that I called somebody in the county who was in charge of public facilities, and I wanted to know why we can't use that dock. People who live in that neighborhood, why can't we hire those up at that dock? It's a county piece of property. We got a county landing there, county-owned landing, county-owned piece of property with floats at it. You know, why can't we use that just like the one across the bridge? And they said you can't because it's leased, it's a private lease by Hay Point. Now, I went on the internet. Hay Point's got some great marketing on there. Their facility on Broad Creek touts it as a private community. So only their people can use that ferry service. Okay? Why can't they let their ferry service over there carry the tourists back and forth? Because it seems to me that's part of their deal over there. Why does our neighborhood have to suffer with tourists wanting to ride the ferry over there? I guess my question is, what is the purpose of the county ferry, the county ferry? Is it to move tourists back and forth, or is it to provide transportation for the residents of Hay Point?
Is to
Not Hay Point, Daufuskie.
right. Primarily, is to move residents back and forth from Daufuskie Island to the county property.
So primarily, number one.
But once we enter into that lease, I don't think there's any way we can limit to a commercial carrier as to what they carry. And that you may be accurate about that, and that's one of the things that
it affects our neighborhood, okay? And that being a public minimum, the ramp, the boat ramp, and the parking lot, I don't care what it looks like. Okay, when I moved there were dumpsters down there. Okay? So, I think we all like it just the way it is, except for the constant flow of rude people speeding up and down the road.
Mr. Broom?
To Mike's point, do we know what the percentage is of tourists that board?
Not yet. We've asked that information for Hay Point.
I'm sorry, you had that question for you several weeks ago. How do you not have that information yet?
But we don't have the answer to the question.
Why do
We've
you not
asked.
have the answer to the question? You had the question for several weeks.
Mr. Broom, go ahead.
Yeah, so how long ago did you request that information?
That I don't know. Do y'all know?
Because nobody did. That's the answer.
No, we've asked the question.
It's easy to find. They all use their Palmetto Pass.
Yes,
don't they?
Well, you can pull up the booking software and see how many tickets are sold per boat. And it's on every manifest. You can see it on a day-to-day.
Very simple. You just have weeks of information.
The information.
They should have the information in 5 minutes.
So to that point, with me being right there on top of it, I would guess there's 75 to 80% of the people use that ferry for tourists.
Correct.
That's the major issue. I understand, you have to provide a service to the
Right.
residents. And I get that, but to that point, from my understanding, that tourist business is growing 20% going to Daufuskie. That proposal that you have up there, parking at the bridge center at the head of the road, ain't gonna cut it. And to get off on a little tangent, let's talk about the bid. Does 8 Point pay the county rent?
They do. They do. Jared, do you want to answer those questions? You probably do.
No, I mean, do they actually transfer funds from Hay Point or Daufuskie Island Ferry service? Is it a financial transaction?
Currently, they do. In the proposed contract, that would all be a credit, so that transfer doesn't have to happen, but it would be accommodated as such.
So my next question, when you evaluated these bids, you said there were 4?
There's actually 3 bids.
Okay, so did you address that in the evaluation of the bids where they're not going to be paying rent, these other free market people have to pay rent, have mortgage payment, so on and so forth? Number 2 is you bought property at the head of the road. I don't know who's paying for the parking at the bridge center.
Currently, too, there's a satellite shuttle for remote parking, which is, it's at the
Palmetto Breeze.
Palmetto Breeze is facilitating that in coordination with the ferry service. So that is paid through, we have a separate contract with Palmetto Breeze for that. They do the pass, they make the passes for the residents, and then the tourists, the part of the ferry contract covers that cost of shuttling. That's incorporated in the cost of the shuttling.
And the county pays that?
That is, yes.
It's not in their, it's not on their book, it's not in their number. It's subsidized outside the contract.
Yeah, so, and it kind of hits the point, that's kind of where I'm going when you're evaluating these bids. So you're giving them credit going forward, not have to pay rent, they won't be out of pocket, and you can play the paper game, understand. You're going to do over $1 million improvement to that area that the taxpayers are going to pay for. Was any of that addressed when you're evaluating these other bids? Because if somebody within $400,000 or $100,000, you know, they could be saving money.
Yeah.
Do it more efficiently, and the county wouldn't even be involved as far as owning property and all that other stuff. And my last point, and I'll shut up, is the county is concerned about what they're going to do about that facility when you close it, if you ever do. There's millions of things you can do. There's Waddell, USC Beaufort, you got an educational facility, you can make that work in no time. If you put out the effort to do it. Right. And the bids are due March 1st, and here we are in June, and you've got diagrams that don't make sense. You know, it's frustrating.
Yeah, well, again, you know, going back to the drawing, whatever we do with the property for a county use, we're still going to have to do some improvements to it. So anyway, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Okay, you hear the vitriol, you hear the anger, okay? And I think
let me make sure it's clear. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, because the same would be if somebody came into your neighborhood and paid Paradise and put up a parking lot, you'd be just as furious.
That's exactly right. That's why I'm here tonight, because I want to see if there's things that we can do to mitigate the issue if we have to stay there. So
and we are very grateful for you giving us an audience, and we appreciate the time that you put in. But to Ronnie's point, I mean, it sounds like a lot of these numbers are kind of farcical in the sense that, you know, the reality is without the credits, without the subsidies, in a free market, being the capitalist society they are, Hay Point proposal wouldn't pass muster. So that's the concern that I have. And also back to the temporary proposed plan for Hay Point. Okay, you mentioned that they didn't have public restrooms. They had an open air facility and that they didn't have adequate parking. Without pumping $1.5 million into a temporary solution at the end of our road, we are literally no different from that. We have no public restrooms. We have an open air facility. You guys can't even get upstairs because there's defunct restaurant equipment that remains from your foreclosure sale. Right. So I just don't understand I get that we need to put like a circular problem into a square hole. And I understand that there are all kinds of municipal issues with that. And I think that we can work together. But I'm struggling to fathom how Pinckney Island, or I believe that there is like literally a paved area right across the bridges that has ample parking you could easily accommodate, albeit private, all right? I know you guys own this place, but at the end of the day, private or public, credits or not, we're still talking dollars to donuts. And just from a municipal fiscal perspective, I don't know that it makes any more sense to retrofit Buckingham for the same reasons. No public restrooms, or you did say that you do have them, and that's great. I'm excited for you guys.
There's
Use them where to go in the bathroom.
Right.
But it's still open air. People don't traverse through the building. There is no adequate parking. And you're also talking about eminent domain, private places.
But if you look at that facility, it's open air, but it's more protected from the elements than what we were going to build. Essentially, what we were going to build over on Hay Point was a glorified metal carport for all intents and
So why don't you
purposes.
revamp those plans?
We can look at that, but again, that's a longer term solution, and it still takes us back to the issue of the logistics of operating out of that when we get those bridge under construction. So that's why Councilmember Rodman, all the council members have asked us to go back and look at some additional options for making the situation better, and we're doing that currently as staff. But I wanted to, and you keep talking about, you all want to work with me and all, but I don't hear anyone saying, hey, could you do this if you got to stay there for a while longer tonight? I hear a lot of vitriol, but I don't hear anyone saying, what if y'all consider doing this tonight? And that's what I was hoping I would get to. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to, in a respectful way, tell you how it feels. Our community is called Buckingham Landing. So that landing is a huge part of our identification as a community. And everybody here's had a kid down there throwing rocks in the water and whatnot. It's just like when I woke up one day and I go down there and there's a sign that says, this is taken care of by Hilton Head Trash Heroes. It's right in the middle of my view of this gorgeous thing. Why didn't you put it over by the AED? Why didn't you put that sign somewhere else? But you just mess up the whole thing. And so I'm like, that's frustrating as somebody that lives there. And now for you to say, oh, we're just going to close the landing. Well, that's one of the great amenities of our neighborhood is to have that landing.
We haven't said we're going to close anything. We haven't said we're going to close anything.
They just proposed.
We haven't said any of that. I want you to be clear. I gave council a conceptual drawing as to how we could deal with the traffic issues. That happens all the time.
I think that's part of the frustration that you brought.
Your attorney back there, Mr. Taylor, who used to serve on county council, will probably tell you that he looked at a lot of plans from county staff when he was on county council that got tweaked, that got changed, that got modified over the course of getting from A to B. So that's the way it works. Again, you all might have said, hey, we don't want the boat landing there if you're going to do all of this. If you tell me tonight we want the boat landing there, then we as staff will evaluate what we can do to take care of the traffic and leave the boat landing there. I got no issues with that. It's just a drawing of what if scenario. If you all say we want this and we want you to do this, we don't want you to close off our road, we can reevaluate all of that. That's good. It was just a concept. It was just a concept.
Just one quick question. You were saying, what did you? Jay.
I have a question. I would like to know, you got, Larry asked a question at the very beginning, didn't get answered. Which other places in Beaufort County were looked at for this landing?
I'll have to let Dave look at that. We looked at about 12 other locations, and I'll let Dave answer those questions.
12 locations?
Did you talk about throwing
None of
several
those were-
$1 million at them
none
for
of those
work?
were-
Like
none
you
of
want
those
to
were-
Do you want to answer the question, or do you want to make comments about the answer before
Want to get all the facts out so we can answer properly.
Yes, we did look at, I think it was 10, 11, 12 locations, and I think everybody's a little bit confused about the throwing the $2 million at Buckingham Landing to try to make the ferry work. The proposed buffer, as Eric's saying, the conceptual plan, that is something to look at long-term for the county property at the end of it. It's not specifically for the ferry. So when you're talking about adding $2 million, it's not adding $2 million to help the ferry. But we did look at about 12 locations.
Which are?
Which ones?
I don't have the drawing with me.
Narrow Road. You got the landing they're working on. You got Neil's Marina right there.
Yeah.
You look at Neil's?
Yes. Yes.
What was wrong with it?
There, don't want to go into a lot of detail tonight, but there we've looked at.
That's what we need.
Let Neil speak.
How much do you want to?
My name's Neil. Neil Turner. I'm
Yeah.
from Net Harbor.
Yeah.
I gave this proposal to
Yep.
have the whole thing done. It would not cost the county a dime. It's simply 2 signatures that you need. A signature to assume the right-of-way, which you're already proposing to do with Buckingham Landing.
But you don't have parking now.
Right, correct, and thank you for that.
Right.
I completely understand. So we don't have parking now. So I've come to you guys with the problem of my own parking.
Right.
This would solve not only the Daufuskie residents' issue of having a landing, this would also solve my issue of having no parking. Now, going to the parking, Buckingham Landing and Jenkins Island Road was the original highway of this entire area, right? So we go from the ferry from Buckingham Landing to Jenkins Island. In 1940, the Marines built the road all the way across. I've given all the council members the history of this just to make sure we're all up to date. From there, it was given out to different contractors, further. Now it's just a dead road. I've contacted the state. They have no desire for the road, nothing they want. The parking issue is completely taken away the minute you sign that document saying that you will take the road and then simply deed it to me with no cost to you. I will handle all payments, all costs, everything. It'll be peak gravel parking, stay within the statutes of everything you need done, and it solves everything. I have the bathrooms, I have the buildings for them to be secured in. I fit everything inside the proposal everything needed. I understand that the RFP was in March 1st, and I came in like March 15th with our idea.
Well, I mean, we can't do anything about that if you.
We can't. The RFP allows
No,
you
we
to
can't.
rebid it. So you are able to rebid. So what I would ask is you just go ahead and rebid it. It's a month-to-month right now.
And-
We can continue to a month-to-month until we get this resolved. It's really not going to hurt anybody. The fact of the matter is, go ahead, sorry.
The location was one part of the RFP, but also the boat, the vessels, and then the accommodating for the emergency services was another part of the RFP.
Correct, but if you're looking, and I apologize, but even if you were to bring Head Point away from Buckingham Landing to my marina, it wouldn't change anything. The RFP that I gave, or the conceptual plan I gave you, did not speak about any ferry service. I have a contract with one of the people that submitted RFP, but that doesn't mean that's the one that needs to go there. So I mean.
In that scenario, that would be, and we were hopeful that there would be more proposers that would make a creative solution just as that. And you have the landing, which Hague Point doesn't. So an ideal world would have been a Hague Point combined with a Neil Turner, and that would have been a proposal team.
And that'd be, why can't we?
Well, because the proposals closed as far as receiving the proposals at this where we stand today.
So let me explain the process that would have to take place in order for you to do a proposal.
Okay, please.
Okay? Is that the county council would have to vote to reject all bids and rebid the process, and then we start the RFP process all over again and go do it all over again. That's what would have to happen now.
So just timeline-wise, the RFP was sent out on March 1st, correct? That's when you need the bids by?
We need a bids by March.
Yeah, so March 1st, so we're in June, so we're only talking 2 months to vote. That's all we're talking about, right? So the next county council member, or meeting, they come, they vote, we're gonna just reject it, start a whole new bid process. You guys now get bids out for 30 days, so we're talking 90 days. We already understand that Buckingham Landing is going to be used as the ferry service for the summer. It's, like you all said, it's kind of impossible to get it moved that quickly. So in the interim, rather than signing a 5-year contract, we could really just say, no, let's go month to month, make it work, and we'll all come together and have a cohesive.
How long underneath that scenario, and I'm not saying that it would be workable or council would reject the bids or whatever, But how long under that scenario would it take you to provide the adequate amount of parking? We're already getting complaints about you not having enough parking now, and people parking along the road right away. So how long would that take?
So the first step today, I mean, the time frame is great, but 90 days would actually be the perfect time frame. I've already talked to the state, they're ready to deed the road over to whoever. You guys have the first right of refusal. I've sent you guys a first right of refusal for you to sign and simply send back to me so I can submit it for my application to receive the road.
It would take you 90 days to get design drawings and get a
Nope, I already have all the design drawings.
for on-street parking that's been submitted to the town of Hilton that's been submitted
Now, Bob,
and reviewed?
if you took over the right of way, the zoning would no longer be the town, it would be the county. You still fall under the town even though it's county owned. Okay, well then I'll submit it to the, I have submitted to the town as well. So 90 days, so we have a 90-day delay. I submit to the town, we get it back. It would take me 30 days to get the on-street parking in a suitable manner. You only require 35 parking spots for the RFP for any Daufuskie residents. We would have over 225 parking spots available down Jenkins Road for that whole time frame. So, I mean, time frame wise, worst case scenario, we're looking at about 4 to 5 months.
Well, again, I'm happy for you to talk to council and see if council is willing to reject those bids and rebid it and allow you an opportunity to submit your proposal, and you lay that out with pricing and all of that, just like everybody else had to do, and we'll see what happens.
That sounds like a plan. I can't do that. That sounds like a plan.
I can't do that.
Just build it out for everybody.
No, seriously, I mean, thank you for working.
But I can't do that.
100%, no.
It's gotta take that.
You can recommend that it gets done.
What?
You can recommend that it gets done. You can't do it.
I really
You can recommend
can't.
to the
I really
council
can't.
To do it.
I really can't.
I believe Jenkins Island is part of Beaufort County, not the county of Elk.
Jenkins Island.
But again, whether it is or it isn't, it's still got to go through a plan review process and permitting and OCR and approval and all that.
But it's on
That's through a wrench in his plan, Steve, but he said county and you said
It
county.
doesn't matter if it's Hilton Head or county, it's still going to be 90 days at least to get plans drawn up and approved through the county.
Going through the process.
Thank you. So this could be a plan, rather than doing a 5-year vote.
Yeah, I don't want you to leave this meeting think that what you're.
Oh, no, I'm going to leave fired up. I'm so excited to talk to council.
I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to leave this. I don't want you to leave this meeting thinking that scenario is likely to occur because I don't know. I don't know. It could occur. It may not occur. I don't want him to go out. Right. Yeah.
I'm happy just.
And if you all can think positive, I just don't want you all to go out and say, Eric Greenway said if we called you, you all would reject the bid, because I didn't say that. So, okay. Yes, ma'am. I haven't heard from you tonight.
This may be way off base, and this is totally from my heart and emotional, but you three, having never lived in Buckingham, probably, maybe you do understand it, maybe you don't. It's like a step back in time. You're close to some of our ages, so maybe you remember Andy and Mayberry. Okay?
I remember Andy and Mayberry. I remember.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. This is totally emotional and totally intangible. But just so you can understand, and I think I speak for the whole group, the newcomers and the third generation people here. Five, okay. But what Buckingham has to sell is invaluable. It cannot be discounted and it cannot be killed. In 1987, I'm struggling to buy my first little place by my own little determined self. I bought a lot from Ron Broom's parents, who have been there for a while. It was a construction site full of beer cans and rusty crap and nothing. And I was so happy to have it. I drove into that neighborhood. I want you guys to really understand, and I'll stand up in another meeting. I drove a little red Toyota pickup truck right then. I drove into the neighborhood, and everybody, it smelled nice. I love the neighborhood, right? Everybody on every road waved at me, like Andy of Mayberry, honestly. And I drive out every time and say, well, there must be someone in this neighborhood who drives a little red pickup truck. People don't act like that on Hilton Head, which was where I had been living. Kids didn't come for Halloween. So anyway, I bought the lot from his sweet little parents and lived in a bread box trailer and stuff until I built a beautiful house. I can't even believe I did it. With the support of my neighbors, it was built by the McDonald's. I've watched whole generations grow up. They come to my house and remember where the weird things were. Her grandchildren, you know. It's something that cannot be bought or sold. And how many neighborhoods do you have? That's what we want to keep. That's what we want to keep. And that's what's being taken from us, and we like it. A little retro.
Very, very well said.
How can we get this man in front of the council right here to talk to them about his plan?
He's already talked to the council about his plan, and nobody bid on it at the last meeting. Right, so.
I just gave him 3 minutes.
Right. Yeah, you unloaded your proposal to them, and no one said, hey, let's take some action on this.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Because that wasn't a vote on the floor.
I actually had 2 council members say it was a good idea. The 2 voted no. Actually, 1 voted
Well,
yes.
again, you gotta have 6.
Oh, I'm happy to talk all about it. I mean, I will.
Are we looking for an alternative? And if there's an alternative, why are we trying not to make it work?
Well, yeah. After what Mary just said and listening to several of the comments that have been made about our neighborhood, I was just going to jot down a few things to say, but I actually wrote a little more than a few things, and I would like to share if that's
I've listened
okay.
to more than one person say more than a few things tonight, so you go right ahead. Okay?
I haven't done this since high school, so I apologize.
Go for it.
He's been there all her life.
In the microphone.
My name is Jackie Kinnear, and nickname Hudson, so I am from here. This is home, y'all. So I have a lot of emotional attachment to this area. So I guess that's why this is a little bit long. I know quite a few of you here. But anyways, my family has lived in Buckingham for generations. My grandfather and grandmother lived in a house just behind the gas station that is there now. My dad, my mom, my brothers, and myself lived in a small house right behind them. The small paved driveway is still there. This is now used for anyone catching the ferry to park there. It's just a little driveway that goes down back behind the gas station.
Where the big fig tree used to be.
What's that?
Where the big fig tree used to be.
Yeah, that's where we used to live when I was just a little girl. Now, my grandfather, T.C. Hudson, he ran the ferry to Hilton Head to transport workers to and from Hilton Head and also much needed building materials, and et cetera at that time. My mom, my disabled brother, still live in the house that my grandfather, my dad, and my mom built. I live right beside them, and my other brother and his wife, they live beside me. We all live in the same place. Buckingham has always been home for us. It is a wonderful, safe place to live and to raise children. My grandchildren are the 5th generation to enjoy the landing and a wholesome neighborhood. We have all swam in the landing along with many other neighborhood children and adults over the years. This still happens today on a regular basis. And a lot of times when the people are coming from Daufuskie, when they get off of the boat or on the boat, they'll take pictures of all of us out there at the landing, swimming and having a good time. It's still a wonderful place to live and to raise children. However, safety is a huge issue. The traffic is horrible. Visitors going to Daufuskie and those who work there feel that the speed limits do not pertain to them or the safety of many pedestrians, which that's just about everyone in here and more. I mean, there are some faces that are not here. This affects the many walkers, joggers, dog walkers, children, and adults riding bikes. There are a few of us in here who learned to ride bikes on those very same roads. It's just wrong. This is the part that just really gets.
It's just wrong that I'm not able to walk my elderly mom to the landing any longer due to the high volume of fast, rude, and careless drivers. This also includes the Breeze shuttle buses or shuttles. I don't know how many there are. It just seems like they're just constant all day long. But I can't even walk my mom anymore. If the cul-de-sac is placed on Big Oak Street, which will cause the traffic to increase drastically on Merwin Vine Street, this just isn't the neighbors that are being forced to use these streets, but this would also be for all of the people who just feel they want to cruise around the neighborhood and see what's there. Whether it's in cars or on foot, it's ridiculous the foot traffic that we have in our neighborhood. Complete and total strangers have no idea, and these days you can't say anything to anybody. But it's just waiting on the ferry, and I will never get my mom out to walk in the neighborhood that she has lived in for over 63 years, and that is a shame. There have been countless drag races of people leaving the parking lot, urinating in the parking lot, people, strangers cruising the neighborhood by car and on foot at all hours, terrible increase of litter from the gas station to the landing on both sides of the road. As soon as you turn in on Ferry Island Road Extension, it is littered with cars under the flyover and anywhere else a car can squeeze in. If the car fits, it sits until someone comes back to get it. The road is now littered with no more signs, no more parking signs placed by the county, and also neighbors who have been forced to put up parking signs on their private property. There is dog waste, especially at the landings. It is so disrespectful how much the dog waste has accumulated because of people bringing their dogs in. They don't care. They don't live there. It's disgusting. I was stopped this past Saturday morning at 6:30. Everybody knows I walk my dogs. I was out at 6:30. And as I walked down to the landing, as I do twice every single day. This very annoyed but nice vacationer stopped me. She was coming out of the main parking area down there at the landing. She was very annoyed, and she asked me, how does all of this parking stuff work? Like I said, she was nice, but she was very annoyed. She was annoyed with me. And I told her that I didn't know how the parking place, how all of this worked, but I do know it's been a huge nuisance since day one. She also asked me, she said, I paid for my parking ticket, and there's no place to park. Now they're telling me that I need to go to the Bridge Center or I need to go down here and park. And I told her, I said, well, I am not responsible for any of this. I don't know what to tell you to do. And she said, well, I paid for my parking ticket. And then I told her about the Bridge Center and going up to the gas station. She goes, and then I had to start giving her directions. Lucky for her, I'd already had my coffee. It was 6:30 in the morning, and I'm like, what the world? Why is this person in tourist season hadn't even started yet? And she was getting irritated with me because I had no solution for her. I was just about to turn my dog loose on her. But anyways, I was just told her that I was sorry for the inconvenience that she was having and her to enjoy her visit. And every single one of us in here, that we are all affected. A lot of us in the same way, but in different ways, depending on what part of the neighborhood that we live on. We live on right there on 40 Island Road Extension.
In the curve as you come out?
No, I'm on the main drive. Yes, sir, I'm on the main drive. Now, this with the many concerns and the safety issues, and now knowing what chaos faces us every day, every time we leave our home, or even just to go for a walk, I ask all of you to respectfully consider having this in your neighborhood. Or would you want your loved ones to live with all of this undue and unappreciated disrespect? Thank you.
Good job.
Don't say it before.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna talk, so I threw in on this bid, kind of last minute, just kind of out of the need of getting approached. And it sounds like you guys definitely want to help the people here, and you're asking for solutions, and that it's not a permanent thing, but I think there are ways to kind of help approach that. Like, one thing, it sounds like everybody here, and I don't live there, so I can't speak, but it sounds like the tourism is a huge issue with it, where there's multiple marinas out of Hilton Head. If the tourism's taken out of that or limited there, it's not going to slow things down, because Shelter Cove, Broad Creek, Palmetto Bay, Harbor Town, South Beach, all bring business to Daufuskie and drive the economy in Daufuskie. So, not speaking for these people, but it sounds like, tourism is in a rush all the time. I doubt the residents are chasing down the ferry. They kind of know how things work. As well as I've worked with Neil for a long time. I think that is a valuable solution, where it could be with the parking, and even if it was with a partnership with a Point or whoever runs that ferry, is something to consider. But I think that is a big thing that it sounds like a huge concern here, is like just multiple, because in the bid is 35 spots for Daufuskie residents. If there's 35 cars going in and out of there a week, probably not here, right?
There's more than 35 cars.
I'm saying 35 are allocated to Daufuskie residents.
Yeah, and that's not the right number. As I understand it from.
Well, we've asked what the right number is. What is the right number? How many? You don't know. Then how do you know that?
There's more than 35 permanent residents on the island.
How do we get that information?
I thought Neil said that they were required to bid on to have 35 spaces.
That's what the RFP said, but again, that number, again, whenever you're dealing with RFPs and things like that, those are minimums. That's the minimum.
You're giving these people who are voting on our future inaccurate information.
If they need more than 35, then why don't they more than 35 on RFP?
Do what now?
If they need more than 35 spaces, why don't they more than 35 on RFP?
Because again, the RFP sets a scope and sets a mid-level, a minimum level of service that's provided by that for us to evaluate.
That's what I'm at here tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
How many times do you propose a proposal that might be a proposal that's temporary, and that wherever you've gotten as a county, when they have their foot in, you're going to have to take dynamite to blow them out of there. And this is not a temporary thing. You should be saying it as what it is, so that
It's been operating.
can go to.
Yeah, it's been operating there for several years. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and it's going to keep going too, because you have no intention of sending it somewhere else. So why put that up with that? Why don't, and then set it out, and then we'll have something to legally talk to somebody about.
And I understand that that's where you all are headed. So, Tom, you want to say something?
That's our only choice.
Mr. Administrator, council members who are here, I'm Tom Taylor. I know most of you, and I thank you for giving us the opportunity to come over here and letting us community be heard tonight. Eric, before you go, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions, because you said, tell us what you want. What this community wants is for the county council to reject all 4 bids at its June 14th meeting. What this community apparently wants is for county council to rebid this project and let new bidders or the existing bidders come in and request it. I don't think anybody tonight has heard anything that causes anyone to believe the people of Daufuskie or the people of Hilton Head or anywhere else will be adversely affected by that happening. The only thing that will happen is that the county staff, which clearly has plenty of people to assign to this, will have to work a little bit. Now, we, again, this neighborhood belongs in the Register of Historic Places for Beaufort County. We talk a lot about many other aspects of Beaufort County, but the people, the families that have been here, I've been here 30 years, and I am nothing. I know these people's parents, I've represented them, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to give a closing argument. All I want to do, Eric, is let you lead with this, and to make sure that the people here understand that this situation is a hybrid, folks, and you've got to do 2 things. First, as the chairman says, or as the administrator says tonight, he doesn't make policy. He's here to ask for input, and it's critically important that y'all understand that on June 14th, this many people and more need to be at the county council meeting. Now, you've got 3 or 4 council members who are here. 2 of them, I think, left, or at least one of them I saw leave. Those are the men and women who are going to make the policy decision about what's going to happen. And you don't want to see a sleight of hand that Eric says, I can't make that decision, they can, and they say, no, that's the administrator's job. You all need to stand up and demand that these questions be answered, because what everybody here knows is that a commitment made by Beaufort County 50 years ago to make sure that the impoverished people of Daufuskie who could not get back and forth would have a way to do it has grown into Beaufort County taxpayers subsidizing a tourist one that is making a buttload of money. And we're doing it with county property. And this is really one of the worst things that can happen is, yes, everybody in Beaufort County that saw what happened with Hurricane Matthew was pulling their own weight. We were doing things to help. And this community said, come on in and use it temporarily like they were sold on it. It's very, very wrong for the county to now take the position and say, well, we spent all this money, you don't expect us to walk away from it. That's just not right. And I do take issue with the assertion that that's a commercial property. The Sea Trawler restaurant exists no more. The county bought it. It was a non-conforming structure at the time the county bought it, and it is not a non-conforming structure anymore. It is in violation of the county zoning, and it is in violation of the community preservation.
I'm glad you brought that up. How is it no longer grandfathered, Tom? Tell me that, because, and I'm gonna throw something back on you. That you argued before the Zoning Board of Appeals just several months ago. I'm not going to get you personal. I'm not getting personal. I just don't understand how you think it could no longer be grandfathered. There's a court order saying that they had the right to build a restaurant. You know, I don't think there was ever any intention, and based on one of the Zoning Board of Appeals members that dealt with a case, that there has to be an intent to abandon the use in order for it to lose grandfather. I mean, that's what you all argued for our mobile home park issues.
When is the county going to start serving food?
Right. But again, you can change the use from one grandfather use to another in the code. But anyway, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just making that point. You can make your point. I can make my point. So.
Here's the deal. If the county council members want to see what people perceive to be right development, this is an incredible example tonight. Because everybody in here has laid out a factual scenario that nobody disagrees with. This never should have been a permanent position for this ferry, and now they're trying to make it into a permanent, because 5 years is about as permanent for this community as it gets. So do the right thing. Reject these bids and help these folks save this community. Because if you go over there any day, and if you look at this PowerPoint that's up there now, you're going to see what it is. This is just horrific for this community.
And if you want the answer to your question, Eric, I have it right here.
Yeah, let me take this guy's.
You're talking about nothing over there historical. There is a tabby, isn't it? The state regulations that you're not supposed to destroy tabbies.
Yeah, I don't think I said there's nothing over there.
I didn't say you did.
Oh, okay.
I'm telling you that there is a tabby there that was ran into when Roller had his restaurant.
Okay.
They knocked it down, and they had a sledgehammer out there one day to get ready to completely destroy what was not bent.
Okay.
And my daughter happened to see, they went over there and saved all the tabby that was not bent.
Okay.
But there's still a tabby structure there. And you can't, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, you cannot destroy that tabby.
Yeah, I don't.
I was just going to answer Eric's question about how it's not commercial anymore. Oh, I'm sorry. I think they want me to answer. Thank you. They want me to answer, Eric. No, they want me to answer. Thank you. So the reason it's non-conforming is because the Buckingham Preservation Plan was adopted into the Community Development Code. And under that preservation plan, the Sea Trawler Restaurant is identified as a non-conforming parcel. All right? The zoning and existing commercial uses. None of the above parcels contains uses that conform to the existing community preservation land use ordinance. In this respect, the uses are considered to be non-conforming and subject to certain to specific certain limitations. Number 5, any non-conforming use shall be considered abandoned if vacant or unused for 120 days. Abandoned uses shall only be replaced with conforming uses and structures. That's part of your community development code.
Yeah.
It lost its standing. When that Sea Trawler restaurant closed, it lost its standing. So it conforms now to the residential zoning of the Community Preservation
And Eric
District.
Greenway was not even employed at the county when the decision.
I didn't say you were. Your question, you asked him, you asked Tom.
It is a non-residential commercial building.
It
on the
lost its
property.
non-conforming
Well,
status.
it's still a commercial building, ma'am. It still is.
No, it's
still looks
it's an illegal commercial building is what it is. And I'm going to just go ahead and play this slideshow for you so you see what we deal with on a daily basis in our neighborhood.
Eric, can I make a comment?
Well, I didn't really have a question. I actually had prepared something to speak, and Jackie, bless your heart, you were getting up. But I do want to say, you know, you talk about Native Islanders and that sort of thing. Our family are Native Islanders. My great-grandfather came to Hilton Head and had his first baby on Hilton Head in 1880. My grandfather was born on Spark Oak Road in 1905. My mom was born on Honeyhorn in 1941. And at 9 years of age, her parents brought her to the mainland from Hilton Head to Buckingham so that they could get a better education in Bluffton. I am a third generation born and raised on Hilton Head Island. And my mom, God bless her soul, you know, she moved to Buckingham when she was 9. She just turned 80. So, and we're just one family. Jackie's also from, my mom was Ethel Hudson Croats. And Jackie's also part of that family. We've been there for decades. For 140 years, my family has lived in this county, paid taxes in this county. And I couldn't be more disappointed in what's been happening at Buckingham. You know, and the traffic situation is horrendous. I stopped taking my son in his wheelchair to the boat landing because the traffic was so bad. So wrong.
It is wrong.
So wrong.
My name is Leanne Coulter. I'm a permanent resident of Daufuskie Island, and I'm the chair of the Daufuskie Island Council. And make no mistake, that the residents of Daufuskie Island, no matter what's decided temporarily, it's not a win-win situation. If we stay, it's not a win for us because it's not a win for you. If we move, it would be a win for you, but it would not be a win for us. So right now, we really feel that this is not a win-win situation for anybody. But what I think this conversation tonight seriously points out, which Daufuskie Island residents have been working for the last, I've been on the council for 5 years now, and we've been working on that. That's kind of our top priority. We need a permanent embarkation center. You know, our island residents population is growing. We fortunately have been able to get high-speed internet, so that's allowing the historic district, that's the district that's outside of the planned development, it's allowing us to grow. This year, when I first moved to Daufuskie, I'm a speech pathologist, so I worked at the elementary school. The second year I was there, we had 6 children. We weren't even sure that we would be able to have 2 classrooms. This year, we have 27 children. That's pre-K through 5th grade.
I do have 500 cars on fire.
Let me talk, please. Let me talk. What I think we need to do, in order for Daufuskie Island to have a healthy community, we need access to the island. What I think needs to occur is for the council, the Beaufort County Council, to move forward on a permanent location for an embarkation center. We've identified in 1985, the southern end of Picnic Island was identified as the embarkation center for Daufuskie Island. And then I think what happened is the Melrose development occurred, and they had Salty Fair, and that had probably over 300 parking spots. There was never a need for parking. When Melrose sold, they sold, or it wasn't when Melrose sold, but one of the investors and owners of Daufuskie, when the 08 collapse of the market occurred, sold off their boat landing, one of the biggest assets. So we've got Picnic Island, we've also got a potential, Captain Richard has created quite a lengthy overview of what could happen at Jenkins Island. And I think that that's really worthy to look at. I think we have to look for a permanent location. We have to start looking now. We have to look right now because Daufuskie Island is a community that's growing. Let me finish. Let me finish, and then you can say whatever you like. In my opinion, and again, if we look at Picnic Island or Jenkins Island, those areas, both of the development of those areas, are going to depend on the reconstruction of 278. It just is. And thank goodness that the state is looking at that reconfiguration there. How it will pan out, I'm not sure. But to turn left out of Picnic Island, at least at Buckingham, and I'm not proposing we stay at Buckingham, but at least at Buckingham, you can at least pull over and turn. Coming out of Picnic Island, I don't think so. You would have to turn right and turn around. Let me talk, please, and then you can say all that you want. So I think for moving temporarily over to Picnic Island, as far as the Daufuskie Island residents and as far as the council, we did not feel that that would even be a good temporary solution. One, because it's not safe. There was just no way it's safe to get out. You're standing in a field. If it rains, now you're moving cargo on muddy. Now, hang in with me. I'm not saying Buckingham is where we should stay. What I'm saying is that we need to look at Picnic Island, Jenkins Island, or some other place where we can build out and have 500 parking spots, so we've got visitors there, we've got residential parking there, and that it's not interfering with the neighborhood. We don't want to stay there any more than we want us there, but right now, we don't want to go stand out in the field if it rains or if there's lightning and then they pee in the woods, and, so we're looking for a win-win, and right now, it's not. I am going to disagree with Mr. Taylor's opinion that the RFP should be rebid. Absolutely not. It went out and it was fair, and anybody that wanted to bid that contract could have bid it. I do think the Hay Point Ferry Company has provided an excellent residential ferry service. For an excellent residential ferry service, there has to be a tourist component. No one would bid on the ferry service without a tourist component. Otherwise, we get 2 or 3 runs a day. We don't, or 2 or 3 runs a week. We're not going to get 2 or 3 runs a day. Currently, our last run is at 4 o'clock. It takes me 6 hours to go to the grocery store, no matter if I'm buying one thing or if I'm buying I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is we've got an excellent ferry service. There has to be a tourist component. What needs to be done is for us to move out of Buckingham Landing to a permanent location.
So would you
support
the rejection of all of these bids at the next council meeting?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I think Hay Point,
A good settlement, nobody gets what they want. I'm sorry, but I hear what you're saying, but you're not
I
saying
live in
right.
Buckingham Landing. Why did you move to Daufuskie?
I did.
Why did you move to Daufuskie? Why didn't you like living there? You didn't want people all over you.
I think we.
How would we put them down the street from you, out the towards your house? Wouldn't you be irritated?
I would be, and that's why I'm saying that the Buckingham.
Well, we're looking at alternates. Right here is a gentleman has an alternate.
And the fact that you choose not to support our rejection of the bids is an absolute counter to all that you're saying.
Can get considered. We don't need to be attacking people or being
Let's not, let's try to support
I understand that you're upset. I understand you're upset. The reason I'm here tonight is to try to get information from you all so that we can evaluate this holistically.
Big Oak Street. I moved here a couple of years ago. I bought it, the house, because it had charm. These neighbors recognize the charm. I fixed up an old fish camp. And I bought it because of that. I bought it because of the neighborhood. It reminded me as a kid. And I'm fighting over the neighborhood. Hey, Joe, do you know about what they're doing down the street? I go, no. I build houses in Beaufort County. I have to deal with Beaufort County bureaucracy, and they force me through hoops. But nobody has the courtesy to send me a notification they're shutting my street down, or there's an idea to shut the street down. Yeah, none of this, and you're gonna go vote on a permanent, that's what's irritating, you just ramble through, I can't do
There's
that.
gonna be no vote about shutting anybody's street down or anything. That was a concept plan, so.
If I may, I'm not going to argue any of the legal or the business points, but I wanted to try to sum up something that I think that the residents are trying to say. We had to take this on when Matthew happened as a temporary solution for the difficulties to get back and forth to Daufuskie. I think we have been very gracious over this period of 5 years, and we have suffered a lot over the period of 5 years. I think on that basis, we deserve some good faith on the part of the county and anybody else who's looking at this to look for other solutions. Temporary, we understand, but there's got to be a limit to temporary. You don't just give you a buck and you take the whole dollar. I mean, you take the whole place.
I can't think we're counting maybe what they're gonna do, but I have a feeling that that's where we're headed. I have a feeling that's where we're headed.
If you admit that Buckingham is temporary, then why would you invest more money in the conceptual plan? If
Well, it's very likely that that property is gonna get used for some
Well,
county.
we've already established it's very legally. You're not
Yeah,
zoned
the council-
correctly to do anything commercial
Right.
there.
Yeah, whether it's grandfathered or not, the council has a right to go to a public hearing to use that for a government service.
And to that end, Mr. Greenway, so you were saying, if you don't do anything with the Ferry operations, you have to do something, you own the property. We get it. Part of the reason why we're angry, we're here, is because we own property too, and we don't want to be told what to do with it either. And we don't think it's fair that you can come in and override what we want to do with our own property. So I'm going to put together a counter proposal for you for a marine science research facility that operates Monday through Friday, 9 to 4, gives the county a fiscal opportunity to recoup costs. I'm having it in the works, but I don't like to put plans together that are based on fiction. I'm a really big believer in putting things together that are based upon fact.
The plan that you're gonna
So
put
I am
together is
going to
gonna
do
have
my
to come
homework.
along with redesigning
And then
that
I'll give
parking
it to you.
lot. So
But I don't.
No, it won't. It will not.
So you will see that in short order, but I have to do my homework first.
I look forward to seeing that.
And I look forward to working with you.
I look forward to seeing that. Does anybody have any other questions? Yes, sir.
Actually, I have one for the young lady, I'm so sorry. You said that it was not a win to move out of Buckingham.
It's no, it's not. I think the Daufuskie Island residents feel the same way that this community feels. We had a sand mine being proposed in a residential area, and the people that live there didn't want it. We've got a wealthy owner that's bought several hundred acres of property that wants to start closing colonial roads and moving roads. We don't want, so for us to stay isn't a win for Daufuskie because it's not a win for you.
Right.
For us to leave is not a win for us because where are we going to go right now? Until the county commits to getting a permanent location, and whether it's on Whitney Island or Jenkins Island, there's two really good ideas, but with the movement of the reconstruction of 278, to move us over and then have road construction
There'll be road construction at Buckingham as well.
Oh, God.
I mean, but we've done our part. I know, and I'm not, and I agree, but
So what's wrong with Neil's proposal?
step up.
What's your problem with Neil's proposal?
Okay, a permanent location, and Buckingham is not it. It's either Jenkins Island as an idea or Whitney. Take a look at those and see, make a proposal.
But what's your issue with moving to Neil's location temporarily? Hilton Head Harbor Marina. It's a marina.
I have no idea who you are.
I think it's more procedural.
Nice to meet you. Not to Hilton Head Harbor is the oldest marina on Hilton Head, where the northern marina becomes straight over the bridge with the first left. Just to give you kind of a conceptual place where we are.
On Jenkins Island.
Yeah, because we can see the world.
We are on Jenkins Island. So Jenkins Island Road is IMD with M. So,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm
And then
that road.
is that where that was on the Daufuskie
No, you're
Island?
fine, you're fine.
Is that where what is it, Ferry facility?
Yep, the RV is right there. Yeah. Okay, Okay, so that's right there. And truly, I'm actually really excited to talk to you about this because for the Daufuskie residents, what is a win for you? Like, what do you, as a resident of Daufuskie, for a ferry service, what are you looking for so we can try to facilitate that?
And looking down the road again, because and again, I'm going to throw out a name with Monica Spells, you know, we have to look at what is going to work for the residents, and obviously a location. If it's not Buckingham Landing, I don't feel. But we would like an extended ferry service right now. The first ferry goes out at a certain time. It comes back at 4. But again, I don't, as the chair of the community council, I'm not going to say this is what has to be in the bid, because if a ferry service provider doesn't sign it, then we're out. So what we need is parking. We need, I would say, if we're looking at the next 10 years, I would say 500 parking spots. I mean, we need 300, 400 parking spots.
So overnight parking spots?
We need parking. We need a facility that is secure and safe. We've got visitors. I mean, think about Hilton Head. I mean, in Hilton Head, you can't even go to dinner on Sunday because no one's open. It's because you don't have visitors. In January and February, you don't have visitors. So it's a really shut down.
Right.
Without a tour, our region is a tourist destination. We live at the beach. So in the summertime, in the shoulder seasons, we're busy from spring break until Christmas. January and February, we are only down. And so we need to be able to have a parking facility. We have a ferry company that is by far exemplary. They have the capacity to move cargo, and when visitors come, you have to vote everything over. There's no grocery stores there. There's several restaurants, so you have to bring everything over. They have to be able to move cargo. They have to have a dock that's going to allow the movement of cargo. They have to have a surface that is going to allow residents to move cargo, suitcases and things like that. Gravel roads and grass doesn't work.
So the question I have for that, the cargo aspect, right? So we're looking, and this is, I'm actually really excited to talk to you. So we're looking at a situation for the Daufuskie Island residents, and we're trying to also accommodate tourists, which we have multiple facets throughout the island that can handle now. So if Jenkins Island was able to handle just the residents, give you guys secure parking, all weather access, I mean, a building to be in, everything, bathrooms, everything you require. I mean, your comment earlier that nobody would run a ferry service without the tourists. I'd love to run a ferry service without the tourists. To be honest with you.
So you could make 6 runs a day on maybe 5 people running.
I believe the RFP is 2 runs, 2 back-to-back runs, so it's 4. Well, no, I don't mean to give the...
Yeah. So my point is, I'm representing the community. The ferry service that we have now is excellent. It's excellent. We would prefer not to have 2 runs a week. I think what we need is to look at a place to put the ferry embarkation center. I would, for one, not be for rebidding the contract. It went out.
Ms. Coulter, can we agree fundamentally, all right, let's try and meet in the middle on something, that this Buckingham Landing conversation needs to be tabled and revamped to fit your needs as well as our own?
I think it's a tourist area. I think whenever you look at anything that's going to have a tourist element, I mean, there's small businesses on the Daufuskie Island.
So we can't even agree on that.
Let me tell you.
Just that we could table Buckingham. You said repeatedly Buckingham is not your place.
It's not a company.
It's not ideal. So we can't even agree to table and maybe discuss further.
It's still won't take care of the issue because the people that
How long is it going to take to build out ferry?
Buckingham still has to operate. We still have to run a ferry.
Well, your RFP only calls for 2 runs a day. So So, I mean, like, which is it? Either we're happy with what we've got, or we're not happy that it's not
The Daufuskie
conforming.
Island Council was not real thrilled, and
we just need to have further
with the
conversation.
RFP. The RFP, the idea of 35 parking spots is probably about 5 decades old, that idea, and to have 2 runs a day, that does not allow people, that would never allow Daufuskie Island to develop in a residential community that would commute off and work. We've got young families there. It really limits you that you can move there. We have a very nice neighborhood. We have a nice neighborhood.
So do we.
I'm not saying we need to stay at Buckingham Landing forever.
What's temporary? They've already been there for 4 years. What's temporary?
Well,
What's in your mind is
talk to your county.
another 4 years, 10 years there in our neighborhood?
I think you're.
What are we talking about?
I think it's built out.
It's
I
getting
think
late.
it's built out.
I would like to be close to my bedroom. But I just want to ask you, I mean, this is going to go on for quite a while. What are we going to do now for the safety and the well-being of our neighborhood now?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Now. No, I'm not talking about 5 years down the road, I mean temporary, I'm talking about tomorrow, next week. What are we going to do now to keep our neighborhood safe? To keep the people from speeding down the road, from urinating out in public, you know, picking up their dog food, picking up the litter? What are we going to do about those things now?
And, you know, added on to that now thing, okay, that says we're going to do something on it, and it's a temporary fix for now, okay? You tell me how many government decisions were temporary fixes for now, and 25 years later, they're still on the same baseline as they were for almost now.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen in this particular case. No, I don't think so. I don't think that's gonna happen in this particular case. You're probably going to see some approval on June 14th. Again, I'm just speculating what could potentially happen at the 14th meeting. You're probably going to see some approval of the current RFP for Hay Point at Buckingham Landing, but also then a direction to staff to secure a more permanent solution either at Jenkins Island or Pinckney Island. Now, the problem with Pinckney Island is a lot of impacts to the island based on the proposed alignment of 278 improvements. In order to get people in and out of there and do improvements to get back on 278, get off 278, you have to impact over a third of that island that's very environmentally sensitive. So that may not be the best solution, but I do think probably what you're going to be looking at is some effort to move forward on the current RFP with a direction of staff to seek a more permanent solution for the ferry operations at Daufuskie Island in a different location in Buckingham. To answer your question about the safety and all of that stuff right now, the only way to make that work is for there to be some improvements to the existing conditions at Buckingham. And I can't tell you whether or not council would support doing any improvements to
one of the main problems is the speeding.
Right.
It is the speeding, the high volume, and you don't get it unless you live it.
Yeah,
Well, I've looked and looked and looked and looked, and it was only just within the last couple of months that there is a speed limit sign, but it's right at the front. As you turn around the curve, it says 25, but that.
It says 30.
Oh, is it 30? Okay, well, I've been looking for
Should be 50.
But I look at the state neighborhood, it's an automatic, an individual neighborhood, it's an automatic speed limit.
I'll reach out to the sheriff's office. That's an elected official. I can't give directions to an elected official, but I'll reach out to the sheriff's office and ask them to beef up patrols in the neighborhood. When the tourists are coming in and things like that, so we can try to assist with that particular issue. Councilman Hirschman has been very proactive on y'all's behalf. regarding this, and he's asked for us to provide him a report of the citations and the warnings that have been issued by the sheriff's office out there at Buckingham. We got that report from the sheriff's office to date. I didn't see anything that significantly talked about them ticketing people or issuing warnings on that road, but that doesn't mean it's not a problem. I'm just telling you what the data showed me, and we will make a request to the sheriff's office to beef up patrols in your neighborhood and see if they can assist with that particular issue.
Once in the last year. I'm out all the time. That's my neighborhood.
All I can do is make the request. I can't make the request tonight. I'll make the request tomorrow. Yes, ma'am.
I have a suggestion. The county pays for the shuttles, you could start right there and simply asking the shuttle to slow down. They come flying down, that's taking
I'll make that call tomorrow as well.
I was walking to the shuttle one day in the stroller, and we had to block and turn our backs because it was going so fast.
I'll make that call tomorrow for you all as well.
Thank you.
We got great complaint. Let's slow it down. Honestly, we don't want, believe it or not, we don't want to cause an impact to you. I truly want to get it out. That's the reason why I came out here. If y'all think this is the only thing I had to do tonight, I didn't. I got plenty of other things I could be doing. I'm out here to try to answer questions for you all. And listen to you all for the first time.
So I have a suggestion to mitigate the damages to our neighborhood immediately.
Okay.
Can county please require Peg Point to not have tourists drive into the neighborhood to drop off their luggage, turn back around, drive back out of the neighborhood to go to Bridge Point to park their car, and then take the shuttle bus back into the neighborhood? This is their current operation, okay? They have everybody come, drop all their belongings, and then go drive back out and then ride the bus in. That's 3 trips. My suggestion is, for the immediate future, only Daufuskie residents are allowed to drive into the neighborhood, to park into the parking lot and unload their luggage. That parking lot, Daufuskie residents only. Tourists are to go straight to Bridge Center. Peg Point can get some sort of a van or a trailer to load the cargo and the luggage in, and then 1 shuttle bus and 1 trailer come into the neighborhood with the passengers and the cargo. That would severely limit the amount of cars on our road.
We can make that request.
With signage to tell people.
It's still temporary, right, Linda?
Daufuskie residents. It's still temporary.
With signage,
Signage to say that only Daufuskie residents may drive down to the.
We'll have to work with DOT on the signage because all that's right away. But we'll do that.
And asking Peg Point to take it off of their website, directing people to drive down to the They have it on their website for people to drive into the neighborhood.
We'll make that request tomorrow.
That would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
It's a good suggestion. And it's already been suggested by one of our council members, Chairman of Public Facilities. I said, yes, ma'am.
Just a point of history. We fought Rollers Restaurant.
They did.
We fought.
We went to every hearing.
What we didn't think was a fair thing. We couldn't understand when the county bought the restaurant, especially when they bought it without a plan. And this sort of seems like an afterthought. And it doesn't feel right.
I understand. I get that. I certainly understand that. I've been on it. I've been on the Daufuskie Island Ferry situation on both sides of the equation, believe it or not. As a zoning official, that telling council, the current zoning of Buckingham Landing does not allow a ferry operation. And now I'm on the side of being county administrator, trying to figure out a solution to a long-standing problem that is difficult to resolve because we've got a public good situation occurring here that is negatively impacting you all currently, but if we don't manage it right, we're going to negatively impact the people on Daufuskie Island, and I'm trying to balance that out, and that's the reason why I wanted to get the information from you all tonight, so I hear your concerns. I'm sure council appreciates your input and your suggestions and hear your concerns, as do I. Tom Taylor and I, we are never on the same side of any issue, but we have a lot of mutual respect for each other. So you all are in great hands with Mr. Taylor. I'm sure I will see him at some point on the opposite side of the issue moving forward. But I have a lot of respect for him as an individual and as an attorney, and I hope he would tell you the same thing about me as a planner and as a county administrator now and as an individual as well. So I certainly understand that. And I'm not here to try to throw anything down anyone's throat or to force anything on you all. I appreciate you all coming out and giving me 2 hours of your time tonight and voicing your concerns, and we'll try to craft an appropriate plan moving forward. And I want to tell you, as far as council representation goes, you've got one of the finest council representatives that I've ever had the pleasure of. Very vocal on your behalf, and certainly, all of our council members are great and do what they need to do for their constituents. So, Mr. Ware, do you have a question?
I was just going to say that after we're done, we have a lot of copies of the David letter if anyone wants to stay after to sign it. We have plenty of extra copies after your things.
Well, we're going to let you all do that. Feel free to use this facility as long as you need to. You'll wipe it out later